Earlier today, I saw this viral photo of many individuals that were holding up these Epstein binders. Can we pull this one up? So this is a letter that was accompanying the binders themselves. It's a letter from AG Pamela Bondi, and it reads, "Dear Director Patel, before you came into office, I requested the full and complete files related to Jeffrey Epstein. In response to this request, I received approximately 200 pages of documents, which consisted primarily of flight logs, Epstein's list of contacts, and a list of victims' names and phone numbers. I repeatedly questioned whether this was the full set of documents responsive to my request and was repeatedly assured by the FBI that we had received the full set of documents. Late yesterday, I learned from a source that the FBI field office in New York was in possession of thousands of pages of documents related to the investigation and indictment of Epstein. Despite my repeated requests, the FBI never disclosed the existence of these files. When you and I spoke yesterday, you were just as surprised as I was to learn this new information. By 8 a.m. tomorrow, February 28th, the FBI will deliver the full and complete Epstein files to my office, including all records, documents, audio and video recordings, and materials related to Jeffrey Epstein and his clients, regardless of how such information was obtained. There will be no withholdings or limitations to my or your access. The Department of Justice will ensure that any public disclosure of these files will be done in a manner to protect the privacy of victims and in accordance with the law, as I have done my entire career as a prosecutor. I am also directing you to conduct an immediate investigation into why my order to the FBI was not followed. You will deliver to me a comprehensive report of your findings and proposed personnel action within 14 days. I appreciate your immediate attention to this important matter. I know that we are both committed to transparency for the American people, and I look forward to continuing to work with you to serve our president and our country." Now, the information that's come out so far has since been published on justice.gov. Attorney General Pamela Bondi releases first phase of declassified Epstein files. When the files first were released in these binders, the individuals at the White House were instructed there would be an embargo. And this means, for those that aren't familiar, you cannot release this until a certain date or time. It was supposed to be a couple hours after they received these binders, they could start releasing information. Many people began to wonder why it was. A number of these influencers had very similar statements about transparency and the greatest, most transparent administration, despite not actually releasing any of this information. Later on the day, only a few hours ago, several of these individuals began to scan and publish these files. Interestingly, as an aside, I saw Laura Loomer working very hard to get these documents released, working with Chaya Reichik, who had one of these binders, and they kept getting suspended on these various platforms for some reason or another. They did eventually get released, and then we actually have the Justice Department publishing all of the information, which are largely flight logs, an evidence list, a contact book, and a masseuse list, which is presumably victims. Let me give you the quick breakdown as it was told to be by a couple different individuals who attended. You may have seen the photos. Actually, I wonder if I have the photo I can pull up somewhere. I do, in fact, have one of the photos. This is an image of, we got DC Drano, we got Chaya Reichik, we've got Liz Wheeler, Mike Cernovich, all holding up these binders that read Epstein Files Phase 1. Now, I've spoken with a handful of these people. Some are very happy, some are a little bit perturbed. It appears that this was a PR stunt. So let me give you the breakdown. This was not a planned event as far as I know. You may be thinking, how come Tim wasn't there at that event? Well, it wasn't a planned event. This was, at some point, several individuals were invited to do a meet and greet and talk with the press team in the White House. None of them had any idea that they would be handed, or at least as far as I know, the individuals I've spoken to, none of them had any idea that they'd be handed these binders. When they were told that there was an embargo until something was going to happen related to the release, so don't show off anything that's in it. Now, the question then becomes, how do these photos emerge? Well, I can only assume, based on the fact the White House has numerous exits and the fact they handed very big binders to prominent conservative influencers, the intention was to lead them out where the press was and get the press to take all of these photos, thus creating a massive press storm for this. At the same time, this letter was released and ended up dropping earlier than the embargo was supposed to be. And the letter doesn't need to exist. Many people have rightly questioned this. Why would the Attorney General write a letter to Kash Patel where she literally says, "I talked to you yesterday"? You don't need to do that. She could simply send him a text message. That would imply the purpose of this letter was to create public notification that with the release of this letter and conservative influencers getting access to it, the public would be made aware that the Attorney General is deeply angered by the fact that the Southern District of New York, the FBI field office, was intentionally withholding Epstein documents in defiance of the AG's order. There's a lot of conspiracies running around as to why this is. I'm going to go with Occam's razor. I believe SDNY is deeply corrupt. This is the same office that was going after James O'Keefe. This is New York, where they went after Trump with fake criminal charges. I do not believe these people are honest, and I believe that it is reasonable to assume FBI New York has gone rogue. That is, they're defying the orders of this elected government and the Attorney General. And thus, if I was going to make an assumption, obviously, I think it's fair to say this is a PR maneuver. That's why the letter exists. Otherwise, it doesn't need to. Having these influencers with millions of followers plus combined being photographed by the press in every direction, that can't be an accident. I think what happens is Pam Bondi knows SDNY is rogue and is defying her orders and instructions. But how do you deal with these people if she comes out and says, we're going to send in the troops and go raid this office? First of all, you're going to get a huge backlash politically. It's going to generate confusion. And more importantly, they may scramble and begin to start destroying files. A move like this can put scrutiny on the office, making it very difficult for them to move things in or out without getting public attention, as she has just called them out directly as the office. Simply put, I believe that Pam Bondi wanted there to be a major press storm pertaining to the rogue office in New York to give them public support for actions against them so Kash Patel can move in without any kind of backlash, without any kind of evidence destruction, or at least to the best of their abilities, they could move in. I don't know for sure, but there are some people who believe the purpose of this is to scapegoat the Southern District of New York FBI office so that in the coming days, when they eventually do not release the Epstein documents, which everyone's been demanding, they can say the evidence has been destroyed, find a scapegoat patsy of some random lawyer or analyst and say, he did it. And then who knows why. But I don't know for sure, so I'm curious what the panel thinks.
Well, I was talking to Chad Prather earlier, who was one of the influencers who was there. I actually ran into him on my way to Newsmax in the elevator, and he was confirming what you said, that he did not think that he was going to the White House to get the Epstein files. They were there to meet with Vice President J.D. Vance to talk about messaging for the administration and the conservative movement, and basically this got dropped on their laps. They told them that they weren't supposed to open these binders until after they left the White House, but one thing of note in here in these pictures that I'm seeing is that they're being escorted back from the Eisenhower Executive Office building, which is right next door to the White House and is where a lot of these meetings take place. And they go right to this area, which is known among the press corps as the sticks, which is where when foreign leaders, other politicians go to meet with the president, they will leave through the Oval Office door that's right there on the left where the Marines are standing. And the sticks are where they do interviews with the press. Yep. And that's where they took the photo out.
So wait, they could have walked them out any other exit.
They could have taken them out through the EEOB street exit, or they could have just kept going past the press tents, what's known as Pebble Beach, where all the green tents are, where the correspondents do their interviews. But they took them over to the Oval where the sticks are and then had this huge photo op.
Mm. So it's a stunt.
Obviously.
But what's the purpose of it?
I'm not as optimistic as you that this was all to just call out the SDNY. I think Pam Bondi overpromised a bit because she was on Jesse Waters last night talking about how this was all so sick and the first batch was going to come out, but she didn't hint that this was going to be a nothing burger. I mean, if you look at the masseuse list, for example, the entire thing is just blacked out, which is understandable because these are victims, right? You can't put out their names, but then all of the addresses, phone numbers, everything is all redacted. The only thing you get are the names in Epstein's address book. This is a guy with tons of money, tons of influence and access. Of course, everybody is in that access book, so it doesn't really tell us anything. The only thing of note, which Chad admitted to me, was this letter in the front of it that they wanted to put out. But I think it's a simultaneously putting the burden on SDNY, but also the Trump admin a little bit covering their butts because they have been promising these documents. I feel like if she didn't have the 1,000 documents that she's talking about on her desk, then she shouldn't have been making this big show of it until she had access to them.
And that's interesting. Because I'm going to say it again, Occam's razor. What is the simple solution here? And what I should say is, it bears clarification. In the absence of evidence, the solution that makes the least amount of assumptions tends to be correct. That is, Pam Bondi overpromised on TV.
Yeah.
probably unscripted. What was she, Jesse Waters, when she said, "I've got it on my desk"?
Yeah.
And maybe it's just you're on TV, there's no prompter, you're in the heat of the moment, and you just say, "Look, I got it on my desk," and they're like, "You do?" And then she went, "Oh crap, I've got some flight logs on my desk."
Right.
Realized it was a big nothing burger and needed to figure something out. That seems to make sense. However, it's not necessarily the simplest of solutions. We know that look, Southern District of New York went after James O'Keefe. This is the same. It's not the same office necessarily that went after Trump but it is New York, in this same jurisdiction, essentially at the state level, that went after Donald Trump with false charges. I am not surprised in the least bit to hear that the AG requested documents and they did not turn them over and are resisting, because of all of the offices, this is the one that's presumed to be the most, well, there's two. The DC field office and I believe SDNY were considered to be deeply corrupt. So I do believe it is entirely possible that Pam Bondi was like, she got a call. Well, actually, let's pause. She did go on TV and said, "I got the Epstein list on my desk." But the story is also that it wasn't until last night, I believe, that she got a call from a whistleblower saying there's more documents. So she did promise this would be it.
I think it's fair to say that the SDNY is probably doing what she's accusing them of. But I would say, she did a press conference, I think it was last week, announcing that she was filing these charges against Letitia James and Kathy Hochul and the DMV guy in New York. And that got tons of press attention. So I don't know why she couldn't have done the exact same thing to levy the charges against the SDNY. Why do you have to trot out the influencers with this binder?
I just did a quick search on this. This is the office where they were going after Eric Adams. And when Pam Bondi and the Trump administration instructed them to drop the charges, they started resigning en masse. Mm-hmm. Like, these people are deep, leftist ideologues. Maybe there's nothing related to the Epstein list. Maybe they're trying to find a way to purge out this ideologically driven office. Who knows?
Could be.
But I'll tell you, they're claiming Pam Bondi says you will, or the FBI will. She's basically telling Cash, like, "I'm your boss. I want the FBI to give me these documents tomorrow morning." The question is, tomorrow, 12 hours from now, are they going to get them?
I don't know. I really hope they do. I think there's a lot of people that are going to look at this and they're just going to feel like the administration is dodging.
Yeah.
And regardless of if substance doesn't come soon. And I think that this even overshadows the letter that she sent to New York's Southern District, which I do think that they're it's likely that they're covering stuff up. They're trying to protect people that had have been somehow broken the law or whatever. But I think that it's a bad look to do the whole.
I've got a clarification and a correction. I just did a quick search. The Southern District of New York has conducted multiple investigations involving Trump. The Michael Cohen investigation, the inaugural committee investigation, attempts to influence SDNY. So the Cohen thing is particularly interesting. In August 2018, SDNY prosecutors charged Michael Cohen, Trump's former attorney, with campaign finance violations related to hush money payments to Stormy Daniels. So that is the hush money case that they've brought against Trump. I believe that was at the state level, though. I could be wrong. It all. My apologies, but like, so much has happened. It kind of just muddles together,
Yeah.
The theory that this is some kind of 4D chess scheme on Pam Bondi's part against SDNY just doesn't hold up, in my view. I think it's true that she overpromised, and maybe an unintended consequence is that people are realizing the corruption of SDNY. But I do not believe the narrative that she was planning this whole press manipulation all along to turn people's attention. And even if she did, it's clearly not working, because the main narrative that I'm seeing so far is that people are angry at her and at the Trump administration for overpromising and what appears to be lying to the public about what they were going to get access to. And that's what I'm mad about. It also doesn't justify the fact that the House Judiciary official account for the House Judiciary GOP rickrolled us.
Yeah,
literally.
That's really bad.
First of all, that's not even a funny meme in 2025. It's been like 15 years since anyone thought that was funny. But
And
second
they
of
still
all,
barely did.
that is so deeply disrespectful, not only to the people who voted this administration into power, but also deeply disrespectful to the victims of child trafficking that are in question.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.